Hello, welcome to Everything Foster Care with me, Jason Catrone, and guests. Yes, today is Elle. So, Elle, what I can do is edit, and I will. So we just cut some things out.
No problem.
We don't need to. Okay, first thing, Elle is the head of Eastern Fostering Services, which is an independent fostering agency.
Correct.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's correct.
So, why start a fostering agency?
I suppose if I go right back to being a tiny baby, fostering's always been in my blood.
Absolutely.
So my grandparents fostered my aunt, as she's always been to me, through Barnardo's. So years ago, so I grew up, I suppose, with fostering in my DNA, perhaps not even really realising that, to be honest. So I went into nursing to begin with.
Yeah, we're both running the severals, funnily enough.
Yes, absolutely.
Which was times, you know.
Yeah, I mean, a huge learning curve in life, and actually gave me so much massive insight into people. And I veered away a little bit from fostering in my early career, and I wanted to specialise in mental health because I suppose again it's about what makes people tick and the interesting stuff that happens when things go wrong and how we support people. But when I trained to be a social worker, my last ever social work placement was with Barnardo's, oddly enough. So it's like sort of full circle. Yeah. And from that point onwards, fostering was for me. Okay. So that was 33 years ago now.
33 years ago.
Now, not being a millionaire and actually independent fostering agencies not existing in those days, that wasn't the first thought. And I worked for Barnardo's for several years. And I then went to work for Foster Care Associates, who at that point were one of the first independent fostering agencies who set up.
Okay, so tell me, why was there a need for independent fostering agencies?
I think
it's a tricky subject, this one, isn't it?
It's quite political, and actually FCA at the time they weren't popular at all. Local authorities, absolutely saw them as profiteering, really. Yeah. But I think that Jim Coburn, who set FCA up, he kind of had a vision that there was this mismatch, which continues in this country, between the number of fostering families and the number of children needing foster care.
Well, at the moment, I was just reading this up, we've got a deficit of 6,000 foster families. Now you think, it's quite a lot, but it's not a staggering amount, but that doesn't represent the amount of children going through those fostering cells. So I think that would probably, I'm just taking a wild, uneducated guess. If you've got two kids going into one family, and maybe for a year, 2 years, 3 years, you've then got more kids going through that family. Other times it might be 3 or 4 kids going through. So we're looking into the tens of thousands here.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
That's a bit more...
It's staggering, and I'd certainly say anecdotally from when we first set EFS up sort of 14 years ago, the number of requests for children that we had were perhaps 50 a week, which was still quite a lot for a little tiny agency. Yeah. It's now several hundred per week from local authorities all over the country.
Right.
So kind of tracking back to why IFAs were set up, it was because somebody saw that there was something that wasn't working properly. The local authority's ability to recruit and maintain the right numbers of fostering families that they needed. I mean, I think we all come from the point of view that fostering children needing foster care, that's the final point in terms of options for children. We would much rather they live with their families of origin.
Yeah, of course.
But when that isn't possible for lots and lots of different reasons, foster care is an essential and an absolute needed resource.
Yeah.
So we need fostering families for those kids to be able to have a decent childhood, as a safe childhood. So that need is there. So that's why independent fostering agencies sprung up. And actually, there was something in that formula that worked. Yeah. And certainly in the old days of FCA, we called it team parenting, and it was where we had therapy on tap. We even had our own schools for children who didn't fit into the school system. And there was, and the support around the foster carers was just recognised as being of paramount importance.
Yeah.
And I think we're still at that point today where, and actually we even more so think if we don't get the support around the adults right, we're never going to get the support to the kids right.
It is interesting. Another thing that I was reading was that the Ofsted report
Yes.
was actually saying, now I don't know about local authority, how they fare with Ofsted, but independent fostering agencies have been consistently good to outstanding. And what they cite is the training given and the support given to the foster carers, who can then obviously pass that down to the children that they're caring for. So,
and I think when you're smaller organisations, you can tailor your training a little bit more to the families and what they need at the time that they need it. I mean, no matter however much training you get in the world, sometimes isn't going to help you.
I'm very aware of that.
You know, we're supporting children with such trauma and such complex level of needs. Sometimes that's just, it's beyond what we can offer. And it's so sad, and we accept that. And maybe it's that more personal approach that we can make. And I would know that when we're inspected by Ofsted, even as a very small agency, they are in with us for an entire week.
Yeah.
We usually have 2 inspectors, sometimes 1. So we are under very close scrutiny. And those inspections happen every 3 years, and you're given very minimal notice.
Right.
So that is a good yardstick in terms of how we're doing.
Essentially, it sounds like they just fly in and say, look, surprise, we're here.
Yeah.
You better be operating really well.
Yes.
All the time.
Absolutely. And we'll pick at random, 4 children, 4 families, sometimes more, to really zone in on and look at what you've done. And Ofsted have changed tack a bit in the previous couple of years in that they're focusing much more on outcomes for children.
Right.
So they're really looking at what is it that we put in to give the outcomes for those kids. And we know that some of our children, a good outcome might be actually that we do move them to another family, because we have to recognise who can meet their needs, and where that doesn't work. For other children, a good outcome will be going to university or, finding a place on an apprenticeship scheme, or all sorts of things.
It's the same as sex, I think. People have asked me, why do you foster? And I haven't really got an answer for that. I'm still struggling with that way. But we do a lot of fostering. One of the things I think is important is, and we found this when we were fostering, is people are not aware of what it's like for the kids to have come from a damaged home.
Yeah.
And they're trying to fit in to a school, a friendship ring, with not the right tools.
Yeah.
And that becomes very evident. And I'm sure there's lots of kids that do fit in really well, and I'm thinking it's hats off to the foster carers that do this. The interesting thing is a lot of people, that I've talked to have got no idea about the foster carers even there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, when they see some children in the supermarket having a meltdown, having a breakdown, and we've started looking and going, I wonder if that child foster care, or are they just being?
You start to recognise that trauma, and attachment patterns, and I know it gives you a slightly jaundiced view of the world as well. And I think with my safeguarding hat, with children in my family, I'm so aware of the things that perhaps you just aren't in the general population. Yeah. I'm more hypervigilant, around potential risks that children have got, and it's odd. It's an odd world to exist in.
It is.
I hope it makes us more sensitive, and I hope it makes us just aware that actually not everybody does grow up in happy, loving families, and actually lots of people in society don't.
I've read that, and this was a staggering figure for me, 1 in 20 children will be sexually abused during their childhood.
Yeah.
And I used to go in, as you know, I wrote children's books, I used to go to schools. And when I'm looking back, and I'm remembering some of the faces that just look a bit glazed over.
Yeah.
And you just wonder, that's 1 in 20, and there'd be 30 in the class. So the chances are.
Yep, in every
classroom.
Yeah.
There's trauma going on, either neglect or sexual abuse. And it's just horrible just to think that in such numbers.
Yeah.
I wonder, and I'm going to get a little bit political here, is if there have been more money put into schemes like Sure Start and other family services, that we would see less need for fostering now.
Absolutely. Front load those preventative services.
Yeah.
I also think that, I don't want to criticise local authorities because I think they're under massive pressure and they try to do their best, and some authorities do outstanding work, but they're governed by government policy. And way back when we first started EFS, I thought about whether we could offer what's called an edge of care service, where we worked closely with children's birth families and foster carers, and helped to support those birth families to look after children and address the trauma within the family, often from traumatised parents, so working with the parents as well, and prevent that pathway into full-time care. And it was never really took off, and I don't know that there's ever been a real wish for it, maybe because of money or whatever, but wouldn't that be fab? I'd love to do that. I think it would be challenging and difficult work, and it wouldn't work with all families. But there's some families you just think, with that little bit of extra help, with that wraparound support that we can provide, that we do with our foster carers, we might be able to make a difference.
Yeah, so it's not about resolving one particular issue, but all the issues within the family.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
I mean, it's a regular pattern that we see that the families that our children are coming from are adults who really need their own support. And it's no lack of love for their kids. It's actually their own trauma that just dominates.
Yeah.
And that doesn't really get addressed.
Right.
So we have this cycle that goes on and on and on.
I like that. What you said was front-loading the preventative.
Yeah.
That, I think, is where, as a society, we probably need to go so much more.
Absolutely. I liken it, and again, this is slightly political, I liken it to the number of refugees that come into this country.
Right.
We see that as it's a very hot potato that people feel very divided about. But what we don't seem to be capable of doing is looking at the root cause as to why they're coming into this country. And it's because we have global war, we have displacement of people, and people being oppressed in their own countries. So they flee. They'd actually much rather live in their own countries. They don't particularly want to, some people might have been sold a real, love story about what they're going to get in the UK.
Streets of
exactly, which we all know, isn't going to happen, again, despite, rumours otherwise. And it's similar with children, I think, who are in care, that actually it's root cause. Let's look at root cause. Parents don't deliberately have children to not look after them. Stuff happens in their life and things go horribly wrong.
Yeah.
And we really need to look at that if we're ever going to reduce the number of children in care. So as much as I want to say, let's recruit more fostering families, which we absolutely need to in the long term.
Well, that's what this whole podcast is really about.
Yeah, in the long term, actually, what are we doing to stop that flow, other than not leaving in children in dangerous and abusive situations for longer than they need to, because that's something that we also start to see a pattern.
Yeah.
Certainly compared to 10 years ago, the children who are needing our fostering families are so much more complex and have harm on so many different levels compared, a decade ago. Children still had that trauma, but I don't know, it wasn't to the same degree.
Is this because maybe that social workers from local authorities are more reluctant to split families up?
Because they've been criticised.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And they're under pressure to not bring children into foster care.
Yeah. Where actually, therapeutically, there might be the better answer.
Yeah, even if it was short term.
Yeah.
So then work with the family,
It comes back to your edge of care sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that's...
Give families a bit of breathing space, work with the adults. I know social workers in our team have often spoken about their frustration of not being able to work with the adults, the families that children have come from.
Yeah.
You can see it. You can see the need.
Yeah. It's like you weren't treating the symptom without treating the cause.
Totally.
So we're going back to psychiatry.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. And understanding adult mental health.
Yeah.
Because actually there's a huge, although that was what I was drawn to at the beginning of my social work career, we've got lots of that going on in fostering.
Yeah.
Lots of adult mental health
Issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's a terrible thing. So, best thing about being a foster carer, do you think?
Oh, gosh. I don't want to be cliched and saying knowing you've made a difference, because sometimes it feels like you haven't with foster caring. I think I think I often say at our preparation to foster groups, it's probably the hardest thing you'll ever do, and I don't want to put anybody off, but it's
not the hardest thing. Really not.
But honestly, on a soul level, on a level of being a good person in this society, and offering something back, and actually offering children an opportunity to see that not all adults are going to hurt you, or neglect you, or ignore you.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Even if it's for a short period of time.
Yeah.
And wow, isn't that amazing? What other opportunities do we have in this world to make that kind of difference?
Yeah. Certainly from my point of view, there's something really, you can see some progress, but some of the kids that we've fostered, we're seeing progress. We're seeing when, a couple of us came, they couldn't use a knife and fork.
Yes. Yeah. And you think, wow, how does that happen in this society? It totally does.
Never sat at the table. I've heard of a couple who fostered a couple of children who, on the first day, they went to give them their tea and they sat under the table.
Yes.
And they went, "This is where we normally eat."
Yeah.
And you think, what?
Yeah.
So then for them to be able to be drawn straight, and this couple did a brilliant thing of actually putting a picnic rug out.
Oh, yeah. Lovely.
And then moving them to the picnic rug from under the table, and then gradually over weeks and months.
Yeah.
And you learn so much about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That it's not so black and white. So from my point of view, those little wins are absolutely gold dust,
I totally agree. And I think that's what we have to help fostering families see, is that the little wins are just as important as the big wins. Because sometimes the little wins are all you're going to get for the time being. There was an amazing woman called Vera Fahlberg who wrote a book called The Journey Through Care, and it was a journey of a child's life through care.
Okay.
And I saw her speak many, many years ago. And she used to say, you have to think about the number of years that children have lived in a traumatic situation. So if they're 4 or 5 when they come to you, you double that in order to really see solid progress. Now, that is a bit scary, and I don't want to put people off, but you'll get lots of little wins along the way. And sometimes children have to go through a lot of raging before the storm calms.
Yeah.
And that's part of their healing.
Yeah.
And I suppose we have to help hold our families while the children rage. And that's really tough for people.
That is another aspect, isn't it? Is your own family.
Yeah.
So if you're going to go into foster care, you've got to have quite a solid family.
Yeah.
But then when we were assessed, the assessment goes on for about a year, folks, or a little bit less. It's not always, it was just us, I don't know. But and we, they thoroughly check out whether you're prepared for this. So if you go into wanting to go into foster care, I think that's a great idea. And, and you're not really suitable, they will let you know.
For lots of reasons. Sometimes, we have a massive duty of care to people who apply to foster. And it's not just about our children, who we obviously have an overriding duty of care to. And actually, sometimes it might not be the right time for people. And it's not that they're not good parents or they're not an amazing family. There are lots of reasons why fostering might not be right for people. And I think the assessment process is about teasing that out.
I would have been absolutely rubbish at this 20 years ago.
Yeah.
When I was 43.
I'm not saying yes.
No, from my work, definitely.
Yeah.
So I've never had kids.
Yeah.
And whilst I'd, done a lot of psychiatry, I've been a carer, and I was in the whole caring profession, I didn't understand children. But now as we've grown up, we're kind of like, we've been through that process and you know, having a family is difficult for everybody.
Yes.
You know, some people just sail through it. Others, there's a bit more conflict.
Yeah.
You know, kids like chalk and cheese sometimes, and everybody says, "Oh, they're so much alike." I think, well, and we're lucky ours are British.
Oh, siblings.
It is, yeah, isn't it? Sisters. I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Sisters.
Yeah.
So, and when Debs and I first applied for this, we came to do training with you.
Yes.
And someone else, what's her name? She's got 4 kids. She's fostering at the moment.
That might have been Terry or Georgia.
No, I think you might. No, I can't remember, but whoever it was.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I did that out.
Yeah, we'll edit their names out. Yeah.
And, you know, they said, well, could go and do this course. It's 2 days long. And I went, 2 days? That's a long time, isn't it? It's just, what on earth can you talk about over 2 days? 2 weeks would have been, you know, not enough.
Stuff. Yeah.
Not enough, because just to discuss all of the bits and pieces. And since then, you know, I'll say thank you, because we've had some brilliant training to help in all sorts of different areas. And I think that's what's great about an independent fostering agency is they will give you the support that you need. And I think there's 367 agencies around the country.
Wow.
Well, I know.
Yeah.
I've been doing my own work.
Yeah.
And some are bigger and some smaller, but they all have that same Ofsted check.
Yeah, absolutely. It's essential as part of your registration.
So, I mean, how far is your reach here? Because I know we've got Colchester and Southend, I think, you've seen. Peterborough?
Yeah.
As well?
Our furthest points are, a family near Peterborough and a little cluster of families down in South Essex.
South Essex.
Yeah. So we've always, because we positioned ourselves on the Essex-Suffolk border, our original sort of vision was Essex and Suffolk. And then we sort of grew a little bit into Cambridgeshire and grew a little bit up into North Suffolk and the Norfolk border.
Yeah.
And I suppose when families inquire with us, we just look at how realistic is it for us to be able to support them at what distance.
Yeah.
So our family outlying in Peterborough actually are related to one of our other families already in the agency. So usually we might have said that might be a little bit too far, but because there's a link, and we find this, that once one part of the family starts to foster, we've got a few families where other parts of the family, and that's lovely because they can provide really good support. And it's natural for the kids, if we provide a little break or a little holiday for the children and it's with another family member, that's what happens in families.
Oh, we've seen this because the person who looked after Arctic for respite so that we could have a bit of a break.
Yeah.
Her daughter also fosters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and they're lucky.
And they work so well as a unit.
Yeah.
Because there's something called the Mockingbird model that was brought about some years ago and hasn't ever worked quite well, where the concept was that you trained up a small group of fostering families who could be very close with one another geographically and who could then, when they say, it takes a village to raise a child, they could mirror that model in terms of a fostering centre, and they could support each other with respite care and short breaks for children, and they could go around each other's for barbecues. There's this idea that so that then when children did need a break or families needed a break, there'd be someone they knew.
Yeah.
And so I love that model. We've never quite been able to get to it, but we've come close.
And also, you have these days where all of your foster carers can come together. And we found that to be really useful. I mean, we did It's a Knockout up at Mersey.
Yes.
And I made a complete fool of myself.
It's a big one.
And Debbie, who is not normally a physical person, did It's a Knockout, and she just had the best time.
Yeah.
And meeting other people. And that's something we've really recognised as really useful, is listening to other carers and seeing what they go through.
Yeah. She normalises things, doesn't it, in a very kind of abnormal kind of way.
Which otherwise you're in a bubble,
a
bit. So So that's really supportive.
We've stayed true to that throughout since we set up EFS, because we just see that. And again, if children have met people, even if it's just in passing at an activity day or at our camp, it's not so scary if they then have respite, because it's like, oh yeah, I remember you, you're looking after so-and-so, and it's just more normal. It's tough being in care for kids, and excuse me, it's really tough being in care for kids, and whatever we can do to try and make it less tough, that's part of our job.
It's nice. What's great about those days also is that, the kids know that there's other kids out there.
Absolutely.
That are fostered.
Absolutely. The conversations that naturally take place.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, so this is all just like, this is okay. It's normal. And it's so lovely. And when we have our camp, which I think, were we in our 5th year this year? Oh, it's just such an amazing experience, because the kids often haven't known each other, and they'll come together, and of all ages, they get it.
They just gel.
They gel, and you can see them having little conversations, supporting each other. We had one really quite troubled teenager there this year, who on our team building assault course was helping a 6-year-old, and I saw them doing little fist bumps with each other.
Oh, yeah.
And that is, this is a kid who was swearing when he first got there, was really just didn't want to be part of it. And suddenly we're seeing another side to it. So I love that.
Yeah.
And I just think as adults supporting our families and our children, we need to see those things, because it's like, actually, we are making an impact and we are making a difference, and it is all worthwhile, So yeah, those days are just an essential part of what we offer.
Okay. Well, I think that's going to wrap. Otherwise, we're going to be rambling on forever.
Absolutely.
It's not doing stories about severals and going back and forth.
Tell a lot of those as well.
But listen, thank you very much for explaining EFS, Eastern Fostering Services, just in case you need to know. And hopefully we'll be able to do another interview again a few months about other specific subjects. There's a whole area about food and eating.
Absolutely.
Which I'd like to explore. And in fact, it was on BBC the food program just recently. They did a little documentary about foster carers and how children have very, very complex needs sometimes, not all the time, sometimes, with their food, and little tips on how to address that, how to not have confrontation at the table.
Yeah.
And, because you can waste so much time saying, we must eat the greens, pointlessly.
And clear your plate.
All that stuff.
It's a huge subject that impacts families on a daily basis.
Yeah, and that's the place where it should be care and love, because that's probably the place which mostly hasn't been.
Yes.
Anyway, so thank you very much, Elle.
Thank you.
Okay.
Pleasure.
We'll leave it there.
Cheers, Jason.